My name is Chloe, and I am 32 years old. The first thing you should know is that my brother-in-law Mark is screaming at me in the middle of a rented-out hall, in front of 50 guests who are pretending not to listen. His voice, slick, with rage, echoes off the high ceilings. Do you have any idea what you have done? He seethes, his finger jabbing the air just inches from my face. You walk in here an hour late, with nothing but a pretty little gift box, knowing full, while you were supposed to handle the food. You are trying to humiliate my mother on her 60th birthday, and for what? Because your feelings got hurt. He calls it getting my feelings hurt, like it's a minor inconvenience, a childish scrape on the knee. He doesn't talk about the decade I spent as this family's unpaid, unthanked personal chef. He conveniently forgets the Sunday dinner 2 weeks ago, when he announced to the entire family that I contribute nothing of value to our gatherings. He said it with a smug little laugh, as if my 10 years of labor were a running joke that I finally wasn't in on. So I decided to take him at his word. I decided, for the first time ever, to contribute exactly what he thought I did. Nothing. My sister Sarah, his wife, rushes to my side, her hands fluttering nervously. "Chloe, please," she whispers, her eyes darting between me and the angry guests. "People are waiting. Just tell me what to do. I can run to the store." She wants me to give her a list, a plan, to direct the chaos I have so carefully orchestrated. She wants me to fix the mess her husband made, the mess she silently co-signed with her inaction. But I don't look at her. I keep my eyes locked on Mark, whose face is now a deep, furious crimson. I can feel the weight of everyone's stare, the judgment, the confusion. They see a woman who has failed in her duties. But my husband, David, steps up beside me, a solid wall of support. He puts a steadying hand on my arm. Mark sneers, turning his venom on him. "And you let her do this. You're going to let her destroy this family because she's having a little tantrum. That's what they think this is. A tantrum. They don't understand that this isn't a moment of anger. It's a moment of clarity. This isn't an outburst. It's a reckoning. They have no idea that the real explosion is yet to come. Because my husband is holding a piece of paper in his jacket pocket that will reframe everything they thought they knew about me. And it will cost them a whole lot more than just dinner. To understand why I would let my mother-in-law's party fall apart, you have to understand how I became the family cook in the first place. It didn't start with an argument. It started with love. 8 years ago, my mother-in-law Carol had to give it up. Her hands, crippled with arthritis, just couldn't handle the chopping and lifting anymore. She was the heart of this family's kitchen, and she was heartbroken. So I stepped in. I learned her recipes, mixed them with my own, and poured every ounce of my passion onto their plates. For a few years, it was perfect. I wasn't just feeding them. I was holding the family together, and they loved me for it. But gratitude has a shelf life. The thank yous got quieter, and the requests got louder. It was led by Mark. He never saw my cooking as a gift. He saw it as a performance he was entitled to critique. It was always, "This is great, Chloe, but you know what would make it better?" Or my mum's version was a little richer. It wasn't just about the food. He was resentful that I had taken his mother's place at the center of the holidays. By making my contributions smaller, he felt bigger. He needed to believe I was just playing a role, not actually filling the shoes of the woman he adored. The real turning point, the blow that truly knocked the wind out of me, was when my own sister started speaking his language. Sarah used to be my biggest helper in the kitchen, but after she married Mark, she became his messenger. She'd call me days before a dinner, not to offer help, but with a list of demands. "Hey, Mark's decided he's not eating carbs this week, so can you make sure everything is keto-friendly? And you know he hates onions." She became the gentle voice of his entitlement, sanding down the sharp edges of his disrespect so I would swallow it without a fight. She chose his comfort over my dignity, and I let her. So as I stand here, watching Mark's face twist in fury, I see it all so clearly. He isn't just angry that there's no food. He's angry that I've finally stopped playing my part. He thinks he's won, that he's successfully shamed me in front of everyone. He sees my husband standing beside me and assumes it's just a weak show of support. What he doesn't see is the piece of paper David is holding. He doesn't know that my quiet, number-crunching husband has been keeping a secret ledger for years, and he's about to read the receipts for my nothing contribution out loud for everyone to hear. David takes a slow breath and steps forward, his movement cutting through the tense air. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't have to. He just walks to the small stage where the microphone stands, the one meant for happy birthday toasts. The soft squeal of feedback makes everyone in the room flinch, and suddenly, every single eye is on him. My husband is an accountant. He lives in a world of spreadsheets and quiet certainty, not public confrontations. But as he looks out at the crowd, at my sister's terrified face and Mark's smug anger, his voice is as solid as stone when he speaks into the mic. "My wife isn't having a tantrum," he says, his calm words silencing the whispers. "She's balancing a budget that's been in the red for 10 years. Mark said Chloe contributes nothing. I'm here to correct that. You see, I keep records." He pulls the folded paper from his pocket. It's a simple spreadsheet, but in this moment, it feels like a weapon. I started tracking the grocery bills for these family meals years ago. The prime ribs, the imported cheeses, the organic vegetables for 20 people, 4 times a year. Conservatively, over the last decade, Chloe has spent over $20,000 of our money to feed this family. A collective gasp sucks the air out of the room. $20,000. I look at Mark, and the angry red in his face has vanished, replaced by a pasty, sickly white dot. Sarah looks like she's seen a ghost, the ghost of all the thankless work she watched me do. My mother-in-law Carol has both hands over her mouth, her eyes wide with a dawning, horrified understanding. But David isn't finished. He looks right at Mark, his voice turning colder, sharper. "That number doesn't include her labor. At a professional chef's rate, her 20 hours of work per event adds up to another $40,000. He lets that number hang in the air. $60,000. The power in the room doesn't just shift, it breaks apart and reshapes itself right before my eyes. The man who publicly shamed me is now the one being humiliated by a simple, undeniable truth. He tried to paint me as worthless, but my husband just handed everyone a receipt that proved I was the most valuable person here. And in the crushing silence that followed, I watched the man who called me useless realize he wasn't just wrong. He was in debt, and I was finally ready to collect. You would think that a man exposed so completely would have the good sense to be quiet. But my brother-in-law Mark has never been known for good sense. After a few seconds of crushing silence, he lets out a sharp, ugly laugh. It's a desperate sound. "Are you kidding me?" he sputters, looking around the room for support that isn't there. "You kept a list for 10 years. That's not normal. That's sick. You've been plotting this whole time, just waiting to throw it in our faces." He's trying to flip the script one last time, to paint us as the villains who are secretly counting every penny while pretending to be generous. He's grasping at straws, and everyone knows it. The confrontation he's trying to start is fizzling before it can even begin. That's when my husband's father, a quiet man named Alan, steps forward. He looks at his other son, Mark, with a deep, profound disappointment that's more cutting than any anger. "So let me get this straight," Alan says, his voice low and steady. You're not mad that you took advantage of them for a decade. You're mad that they kept track of it. That one sentence lands like a punch to the gut. It sucks all the air out of Mark's argument and leaves him exposed and pathetic. I turn my head and finally look at my sister, Sarah. She's frozen, her face pale with shame, tears streaming down her cheeks. She won't look at me. She can't. In this moment, I don't feel anger towards her, just a hollow sadness. The sister I grew up with, the one who should have been my staunchest defender, is gone. She traded her loyalty for a quiet life with a loud man, and now she has to stand in the wreckage of that choice. The turnaround is complete. David and I don't have to say another word. We just watch as the family we thought we knew finally shows its true colors. The party, of course, is over. The guests are whispering, grabbing their coats, and finding any excuse to leave the suffocating atmosphere. The beautiful hall now just feels like a sad, expensive tomb for a family celebration that never happened. Finally, my mother-in-law Carol, the guest of honor, walks into the center of the room. Her face isn't panicked anymore, just etched with a terrible resolve. "Everyone, go home," she announces, her voice trembling but firm. "This is over. The party's over." She looks from me to Mark, her eyes lingering on her son with a look of immense sorrow. "But we," she says, "are going to have a family meeting, and we are going to fix this." That next week, in Carol's living room, was the quietest, most uncomfortable family gathering I have ever been a part of. It wasn't a party. It was a summit. David and I sat on one sofa, Mark and a red-eyed Sarah sat on the other. Carol and Alan sat in armchairs between us, like referees at a match that had already ended in a knockout. Mark, clearly pushed by his parents, started with a mumbled apology. He was sorry for his choice of words, sorry he upset everyone. It was the kind of apology you give when you're sorry you got caught. I held up my hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "I don't need that apology, Mark," I said, my voice perfectly level. "I need to understand. When you saw me bring in tray after tray of food for 10 years, what did you honestly think was happening? Did you believe the food just appeared out of thin air? Or did you know there was work involved and just decide that my work didn't count?" He had no answer. He just stared at the floor, his jaw tight. For a man who always had an opinion, his silence was the only honest answer he could give. He knew, and he didn't care. Then I looked at my sister. The real confrontation wasn't with him. It was with her. "Why, Sarah?" I asked, and my voice cracked just a little. "You knew. You watched me spend entire nights cooking. You knew what it cost. You knew the effort. And you still chose to call me with his lists of demands, instead of telling your husband to be grateful for a free meal." Her whole body shook with a sob. "I don't know," she whispered, her voice thick with shame. It was easier to make you do more work than to have a fight with him. It was weak, and I'm so sorry. That was the final blow." Her weakness had been my burden for years. David cleared his throat and laid out the new terms. "From now on, things are different," he said. "All gatherings are potluck. Everyone brings something, or nobody eats. Alternatively," he looked at Mark, "we can hire a professional caterer, and we all split the cost equally." He paused, letting the new reality sink in, before delivering the final, crushing turnaround. "And Mark, your share of the catering bill will be deducted from the $60,000 debt of gratitude you owe my wife. You can pay it back one party at a time." Mark looked from me to his parents, his face a mask of disbelief. He was searching for a way out, an ally who would call our terms unreasonable. But he found no one. He had spent years burning bridges, and now he was trapped on an island of his own making, with no one to throw him a lifeline. He just nodded, a short, jerky movement of his head. He didn't have to like it. He just had to accept it. There was no grand apology, no sudden moment of tearful understanding. His immediate punishment wasn't shame or guilt. It was consequences. Our first Thanksgiving under the new rules was painfully awkward, and honestly, a little bit wonderful. It was a true potluck. Some dishes were amazing, some were disasters, and all of them represented effort. The biggest turnaround wasn't just on the table. It was seeing Mark in the kitchen, wearing a flour-dusted apron, struggling with a bag of potatoes. He looked lost. He looked frustrated. For the first time, he looked like he was actually contributing, and he hated every second of it. That, I realized, was justice. Not revenge, just a quiet, unavoidable dose of reality. Things aren't perfect now. Mark and I don't talk much, but the snide comments are gone. He is slowly, begrudgingly, learning what it takes to show up for his family. My sister Sarah calls me every week. Sometimes we talk about nothing, and sometimes she asks for a recipe. She is rebuilding the trust she broke, one small conversation at a time. It's a slow process, but it's real. My relationship with David is stronger than it has ever been. We are a team. He saw my worth when I couldn't, and he made sure that the rest of the world saw it too. So what's the lesson in all of this? It's simple. The love you take for granted will eventually run out. The people who quietly do the most work are often the ones who are seen the least. You have to value the effort that holds your world together, because it is not a given. Don't wait until the table is empty to appreciate the person who filled it. Look around you, see the person who is making your life easier, and say thank you, because their contribution isn't just something most of the time, it's everything.